Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast, show number 77. How to buy the right properties for success. Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast. My name is Tiffany Vogel. I'm a real estate investor, mastermind coach, husband to an amazing woman, and often my co-host, Tiffany, and father to two incredible boys. I'm on a mission to help you become a real estate investor and not only achieve seven-figure success like my wife and I did, but to do so with intention, direction, and clarity. If you want to transform your financial and personal goals, become the version of yourself you've always wanted, and reach your dream life ASAP, then you're in the right place. Thank you for deciding to hit that play button today. Now let's begin. Most people want financial freedom, and some are willing to put in the work to make it happen. But what if you worked hard for 5 to 10 years buying rental properties just to wake up one day and realize you don't have the type of properties that fit your lifestyle? Tiffany and I bought a lot of homes that didn't line up with our current dream business, and we're having to make some pretty large shifts in our portfolio so we can generate the cash flow we want without the management and headaches that come with certain properties.
The house you buy attracts the kind of tenant you will have, and some properties require more hands-on management and time than others. We wish we had set a very clear criteria for our dream portfolio early on, so we don't have to exchange our properties for the ones that fit the lifestyle we want to create. Today, we're going to talk about what a buy box is and how having a clearly defined one can help you set up your dream life.
So, diving into how to buy the right properties for success. And we've always called it the buy box. Well, we've always called it the buy box, meaning when we finally realized that we had the wrong properties, that we needed to start buying the right properties. And when we came to that realization, it was at a time where we were trying to automate some things and trying to simplify some things. And that didn't really come until after we had figured out, what do we really want in our life? And we went into it all backwards.
Well, I think we went into it with the goal of we want to quit our jobs, period. We didn't think about what would come after that.
Right.
And we were buying for cash flow. And experienced investors know when you buy for cash flow, you get cheaper properties usually and tenants that are sometimes more of a headache and harder to deal with. And the properties that we have recently sold to exchange were the ones that were cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, OSB for the walls in one of them.
Wow, that was a property.
Yeah. And then the other one was our only one during COVID that we broke even or lost a little bit of money on.
Yep.
And she just couldn't pay. And the neighborhood and the property attracted a tenant that it was not our ideal tenant and situation. So now that we have more of a vision of what does our life look like and how much are we spending working on the business, we've realized we can financially make some moves to minimize headache and increase cash flow.
Right. And to get to that point, it really took a lot of front end work of us building a roadmap. And if you've listened to any one of our podcasts, you know that we are passionate about our roadmap process and how it just brings so much clarity into your dream building, into your dream life.
And if you haven't read our book yet, The Pathfinder's Journey, there's a very clear explanation of what the roadmap is. And after you've read that, if you want more information on it, Eric's got a course that he's put together that will take you step by step through how to build your roadmap.
Yeah. And course is an evergreen product, meaning you can buy it and start today. And that is on our website, onpurposeinvestor.com under Work With Us. So if you're interested in building your own dream life and designing your own roadmap, head on over there and purchase that course. If you don't, that's fine too. Listen to all the podcasts. You'll get it little by little. And, you could also read the book and get it through there. It's really all about how quickly do you want to achieve it? And, we have found the more we invest in ourselves, the quicker we achieve our dream life.
Invest in ourselves and in knowing what exactly we want and building goals to fit that. I mean, even we literally just talked before recording this, we're going to spend some time this weekend working on our goals for this year. It's early into 2024 and we know directionally where we want to be, but we don't have that clarity. And I think once we have that, we will know more of the actions we need to take.
Right.
So knowing where you want to go helps you find that buy box for you. And then from there, you can find the actions you need to take.
Right. So getting into designing your buy box, there are just certain criteria you have to go through. And I think if you go through it step by step, you will have a very clear buy box and you will go into this buying the perfect properties for your portfolio that are going to give you the life that you want to have. And one thing to keep in mind when getting started is having a target strategy and timeline.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to the roadmap. But the idea is if you know you want to have financial freedom in 3 years, we did. I mean, we wanted to be financially free before we had our first son.
Right.
So we knew we had a shorter timeline.
Right.
So our strategy at the end changed to a higher cash flow property with pad split and renting by the room. So if you're looking for a shorter timeline, I would say under 5 to 10 years, you probably need to look at something like Airbnb or renting by the room or something, house hacking, something that's going to get you a higher return on your cash.
Right. And let's say you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. You love your W-2. You're really in flow in your job, but you really want to build up a nest egg for the next chapter, the next season of your life. Once you hit 50 to 60 years old and you say, well, I don't really want to generate all this extra cash flow right now. I really need to offset my income. I need some depreciation, and I would like to have a nest egg in my later years of life. So I'm going to invest in real estate very passively, very hands-off. And you may go into it with the John Schaub approach, which his book is Building Wealth One House at a Time, or he used to have a program called Deals on Wheels. So, but these programs are designed to help you build a real estate portfolio very slowly, very safely, intentionally, and very safely.
Yeah. And the summary of that book is if you buy a house a year for 10 years, you'll be in a spot to be financially secure.
Yeah.
Our timeline was so much more compressed that even if we bought 10 houses over 3 years, that wasn't enough because you need that rent growth and loan pay down and all these other things to help fuel that cash flow.
Yeah.
I know properties that we had the first year we rented them out, we were making $100, $200 a door. Now they're at $600, $700, $800 a door,
right,
because of rent growth.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I didn't really foresee, like snowballing for us.
Right.
But it did pretty quickly. And we bought in a time when rents grew exponentially. But there's a lot of articles out there talking about how we're becoming a renter nation.
Yeah.
So I foresee that continuing. But knowing what your timeline is on when you want to be financially free, knowing your number, knowing what that roadmap is going to help you pick the strategy. And then from there, you can select the tenants.
Right. And I don't mean to beat the dead horse. There it is. But in Dream Life University, I do walk you through step by step on how to build that roadmap and timeline and building intentionality, finding your FIRE number, your financial independence, retire early number. And Gary Johnson's course, he calls it his monthly nut, which is the monthly obligations you have to afford to keep living in the way you're living now. The next step is to have a clear vision or an idea of what your portfolio looks like. Is it comprised of single family homes, multifamily homes, apartment buildings, mobile homes? Have a clear idea of what your portfolio looks like. And there are educators on each niche in this realm.
Yeah. And I mean, saying single family there's so many kinds.
Right.
I mean, the difference between, let's say, some of the houses we lived in versus some of the ones that we bought and renovated is dramatically different. The ones we lived in and then turned into rentals are newer.
Yeah.
They're a lot nicer, to be honest. I mean, they're also our biggest cash flow properties because there's no repairs. And we're going to do a podcast soon on knowing your numbers when you're analyzing a deal.
Right.
One of the things that's not talked about is the age of the property has an impact on your monthly cash flow in a way that I don't think is something you consider when you're starting out.
Yeah. And it's hard to see until you start doing it.
Right. I mean, and we renovated our homes like crazy, but we still had busted cast iron pipes that you were fixing in the middle of the night on a Friday evening. Like, because there was one toilet and they had to have a bathroom.
Exactly.
So there's a lot to think through in the age of the property. So just have that more in mind. And if that means that you don't buy one a year, you buy one every other year, but it gets you that cash flow and gets you to your goal and you have better properties, that might be a better strategy than just buying cheap stuff as quick as you can.
Right. And so those single family homes, when designing your buy box, they could be 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 3-bedroom, 2 baths, 4 2s, 3 3-2s. If it's a 3-3-2, it's 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2-car garage. So, I mean, really go into this with a lot of intention of what do I want my portfolio to look like? Because you can find houses that fit your buy box anywhere. If yours is a 322 and your zip code is way out of your price range, then maybe look at investing outside of your area. Or maybe you move your whole family to that area and you design your life through that. there's so many ways that you can truly build your dream life anywhere in this country or anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So long as you have a very clear, schedule and agenda and vision and roadmap of where you're headed.
Right. It's all about the intentionality at the end of the day
It
and knowing where you're going.
Right. So the next thing to think about is your target income. We mentioned that briefly with your FIRE number or your monthly nut. You have to design it to where going into it. And like she said, on another episode we have coming in the future, we're talking about running your numbers. That's where you have a house picked out for your buy box, and then you run the numbers on it. Do those numbers represent the stepping stones towards your dream life, towards that FIRE, the FIRE number?
Yeah.
So that's where you're going to design in your buy box your target income per property or per door or per unit, however it turns out.
Right. And then we get into who's your target tenant or avatar. Who's the person you want living in the house and taking care of it day in and day out? Because yes, you own it, but you're not the one using it and messing it up or keeping it nice.
Yeah.
So who is the ideal person to live in your property is something to consider as you're selecting what kind of properties you want.
Right. So I want you to think real quick, Chick-fil-A, right? Do you think their most valuable asset is their building? Probably not.
Chick-fil-A, no. McDonald's, yes.
Yeah, all right. So Chick-fil-A. Let's think about Chick-fil-A only, because you're going to see a big difference between Chick-fil-A and McDonald's. What is their target asset, like their most valuable asset, the building? No. Is it even the food they cook? Absolutely not. Or is it their strategy on getting people in and out quickly? No, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with customer satisfaction.
Yeah, and it's the employees at the end of the day that's delivering on that.
Right. So their target and most valuable asset to them is people.
Right.
It has nothing to do with their product, has nothing to do with their revenue, has nothing to do with any of that. It's all about customer satisfaction. When you talk about investing in real estate, people often really misjudge and, go into it thinking that their house is their most valuable asset.
Right.
It's not at all. It is the person renting that home from you, because that's the person that is going to be putting money in your pocket.
Right.
Forget about the house.
Yeah. Well, and on that same metaphor, you think about McDonald's.
Yep.
And their people is not their asset. I don't think they treat their employees poorly, but Chick-fil-A, I think, goes above and beyond.
They do.
Customers, I know we've been to McDonald's and we are not a priority by any means.
Not at all.
It's the building. Yeah. Their food's marginal at best. It's consistent.
And they got the speedy system, which I wonder if it's still as beneficial as it used to be.
Right. But it's the building.
Yeah.
Is where the money is.
That's
McDonald's.
Their most valuable asset.
Right. Is the real estate.
Right. Is the real estate. You can look at any business out there, and all you have to do is interact with that business a few times, and you will quickly see what their most valuable asset is.
Right.
And that's where they're going to pour the most energy.
Right. And you think about rental properties, your C&D properties, it probably is the real estate.
Yeah.
Because the tenants you're attracting are not going to stay long.
Right.
They're usually lower income, and they're not maintaining the house at the level that a or B tenant would.
Right.
But that A and B tenant is absolutely your asset, because they're the one keeping up with the house and making sure it's in good shape.
And you probably, at least I hope so, have a really great screening process to making sure that you probably screen your tenants better than you screened your numbers on the deal. And I think if you are identifying that your tenant, that your renter is your most valuable asset, then you're going to spend much more time screening your tenant than you are running the numbers.
Right.
Now, not to say you should slide on running your numbers just so you can get the better tenant. Both have to be very strong. But if you want the best tenant, the best asset in your home, taking care of it and putting money in your pocket, then you got to take care of them. You got to make sure you're picking the right ones.
Absolutely. So getting into the actual buy box, you want to make sure the property has an appropriate access to shopping.
Yep.
So I know there's a county near us that there's 1 or 2 grocery stores and that's it. And I think it fits for that community and it's fine. But if you buy something here that it's 20, 30 minutes to get to a grocery store, people don't want to live there.
Right. Well, there's a different type of person that wants to live there.
Right.
So that goes into your avatar as well. So the access to shopping, you'll need to identify, do you want to attract a tenant that wants quick access to jobs and groceries and fast food? Or do you want to attract a tenant that has quick access to hiking or
more land? I mean, usually
land.
once you get further out from the city, there's more privacy, more land, that kind of stuff. I mean, I know we have a house that it's on a couple acres and it's tucked away on a quiet road, and quiet except for when our race car tenant was there. But
oh boy, Race Car Willie, we called him.
Just think about what's in that part of town.
Right.
I mean, and one of our mentors, Bill Cook, he buys 5 miles around the Walmart in town.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a great strategy. You can also, if you want to shortcut it, look to see where they're building Starbucks or Chick-fil-A or Targets. And those areas are, one, they're up and coming. So, job growth and things like that are a positive metric in that area. And if a company like that, they have teams that are focused on finding properties. I mean, we were in a group with a woman who her job was literally helping Chick-fil-A with property tax.
Yep.
Just making sure that they were getting assessed fairly for property tax. And that was her full-time job with multiple other people. So if they have a full team to focus on just paying property tax, you can guarantee they have a team looking at market trends.
Yep, absolutely. So on the next step of designing your buy box, figure out, do you want to be in the single family space, the multifamily space, the short-term rental space, the rent by the room space? Not saying you can't do several at once, but I would say when you first get started, your first 5 deals should be in the same vein.
Yeah.
You should master that craft of running the numbers, buying the property, setting it up, renting it out, managing it, all of that. You need to get really great at making sure they're all the same way.
Right.
Now, if you got started like just recently and you got your very first deal and it's a short-term rental, it worked, but now you can't find anything else that works in the short-term or the long-term rental space, then you might shift real quick to your second one to do something different, right? But I wouldn't go short-term, long-term, rent by the room, and then jump around like
I would
that.
pick 1 or 2 strategies and stick with it.
Yep.
We did just single family rentals or small multifamily. Like we have a triplex, we had a duplex, but we were focused on learning the ins and outs of tenant management for 12-year lease contracts.
Yep.
Then we added in rent by the room, and we got that pretty locked down at this point. And now,
I'm sorry, you said 12-year lease contracts?
12 months, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Annual lease.
We're not doing 12-year contracts.
No.
We're not in the commercial space.
So we did traditional rentals, rent by the room, and now we're getting into Airbnb.
Right.
So we've got those locked down. And once we get our Airbnbs up and running, we're going to have 5 units out the gate.
Yeah.
So we're going to build systems and a team around that before we even consider adding another Airbnb.
Exactly.
Or doing another strategy.
Right. So just to give you frame of reference, we've been in this space for 5.5 years. So for 5.5 years, we went all in on tenant management on single family homes. There was a couple of multifamily, but we're not talking big multifamily like apartments. It was a triplex and a duplex. And that was all we did. And then about 3 years into it, we started picking up some rent by the rooms. So we had mastered the art of picking a good tenant, picking a good property, burring, all of those things.
Evictions.
Evictions, yes.
And those skill sets came in when we started renting by the room because we had a different situation with evictions. We had a little bit more than we were used to.
Right.
But we already knew how to handle a lot of that. So we spent about 3 years and then about 2 years after. So we did 3 years to start doing rent by the room.
Yep.
And then about 2 years after that is when we started getting into Airbnb.
Exactly.
But I feel like, Airbnb is probably going to take us 6 months to get locked down on systems because we have just learned a lot about how things work.
Yep.
And how to find help, and just you grow exponentially faster and faster.
That's true.
So back to the buy box, you want to look at crime rates. I know Trulia used to have a crime map. I think
they took
that's
it
gone.
off. I think it was like some type of discrimination.
Yeah, like fair housing
type thing.
Yeah.
But there are other platforms out there
you can
that
call the police department and ask.
And say, I'm looking at zone 2 of this zip code.
Yeah.
Can you give me a printout of all of the police calls in that area?
And also just out driving around at 7, 8 o'clock at night to kind of get a feel for the neighborhood. You can see a lot of what's going on.
Yeah. I would also go like at 3 p.m. when the school buses are letting out, see like who's picking up their kids, who's not picking up their kids. Are their kids all in the street? Do you want a property in that type of neighborhood? Maybe you do. Maybe you want to attract, big families.
Yeah.
And that is your, avatar.
Big families don't move often. Just saying.
That's true. So, going in and looking up crime rates, any zip code that you're looking to invest in. And I would even go further and go into the zones and then possibly even joining like a local Facebook group for that area of crime reporting. I know we have a great one in our area. It's called our county scanner. And he posts or she posts, we don't know who they are.
I think it's a he.
Possibly.
This person just posts like everything that happens in town.
Yes. Anytime there's some type of police, fire, ambulance response, they post about it.
Yeah.
And it's just a great way to get into figuring out what type of crimes are happening.
And what parts of town,
yes,
too. Because we've had stuff pop up and it's like, oh, we have a house on that street. I hope our tenants are okay.
Oh, my gosh. And then we went and read the comments and one of our tenants commented on that thread of, yep, I saw that vehicle flip over.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, okay, it's not our house. We're good.
Right.
But
yeah, so it's just a great way to get a feel for the neighborhood without having to go there if you join those groups.
Yep.
The last thing to look at is job opportunities.
And we talked a little bit about that. Like, I think the easiest way to look at that is like, where are they putting the Chick-fil-A's? Because they're not going to put a Chick-fil-A in somewhere that's declining economically.
Right.
And your tenants are going to have to work for the most part. I mean, unless they're like online business owners, which most people are going to be working outside of the home. Yeah. So you want to make sure that there are jobs, at least I would say, 30 minutes or so?
I would say within 30 minutes of any type of industrial complex where there's a lot of packing and shipping, or that there is retail or fast food or restaurants.
And it depends on your ideal tenant too. We attract tenants that in some houses that are very, white collar. So making sure that there's access to the interstate or
the airport.
Yeah. Things like that. Yeah. So just things to consider.
So all of those were things to consider for designing your buy box. And once you have you should have a sheet of paper. Maybe right now you're listening to it and jotting notes, or maybe you're going to come back and listen to this later. But I really encourage you to grab a sheet of paper and just start jotting down, like, do I want access to shopping? Do I want access to retail or jobs? Or what kind of affluency do I want my tenants to have or my zip code to have? Am I doing single or multifamily? Just jotting and brain dumping everything. And then just maybe circling the things that sound great to you.
That are most important.
That are most important to you. And then start really building up and, going down the funnel of, this is exactly what kind of properties I want in my portfolio.
Yeah. And pick a few neighborhoods. Yeah. That's the easiest way to start is, okay, I like this neighborhood and this neighborhood. I don't like this neighborhood. I know our first neighborhood that we lived in, my first house, it was all one HOA. But there were certain parts of the neighborhood that had nicer houses than other parts. Yeah. The street's better than that street.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean we want the house on the better street, because we might be able to get one in the other street more affordably. But it just gave us frame of reference that one neighborhood across the street from another neighborhood is very different.
It's very different. So now you've got your buy box figured out. Now, how do you start, acting upon it? I like to think of it as turning it into an automation.
Yeah.
And now, how do you automate your buy box? There are 4 things that we're going to talk about on automating your buy box. One is securing the property. You got to figure out how to get that property. And I think driving for dollars is a wonderful idea. Now, the cool thing about driving for dollars is, one, there's an app out there. I think it's even called Driving for Dollars.
There's a couple, but there is one.
And you basically drive around these neighborhoods that you really like. And maybe you find a house that looks vacant, or that looks like it's unkept, or maybe it's one that's for rent that has been sitting for rent for a while. Well, you go onto that app, or you leave a letter on the door, or you knock on the door, however you do it, but you try to target that property and you try to get in touch with that homeowner to try to offer them to buy the property. Right. Now, the thing about driving for dollars is it doesn't have to be you. There are so many people out there that drive for a living. You have Uber drivers, you have delivery drivers, you have taxi cab drivers. You have all kinds of people that are out there driving neighborhoods all the time. So one thing that I would recommend you do is order a pizza. When you order that pizza, you're going to meet a delivery driver, and don't try to take up too much of their time. But when they drop the pizza off, ask them, hey, do you ever drive through neighborhoods where you see houses that look dilapidated or that look like, no one's living there? And they're probably going to say, I drive past those neighborhoods all the time. And then you say, well, hey, I want to offer you something. If you give me an address and then that address turns into a property that I buy, I will give you money of a certain type.
$1,000. Yeah. I bet that would incentivize them.
And maybe even they become a team member on your app.
Yeah. Yeah. They can get in the Driving for Dollars app, and think about it, $1,000 for a lead, and you only pay them if it turns into a deal. So maybe it's 2,000 or 3,000. You could pay a lot more if you're only paying for true deals.
Yeah.
I think back to when we first moved in, our FedEx delivery driver came up.
She was wonderful.
Sadly, she got put on a different route, but we were building a fence, I think you guys were working on, and we went and picked up some food. So we had some delicious barbecue, and she came up and we chatted with her, made her a plate. Like, we ran into her the other day at Walgreens because we haven't seen her in a while, and she told us she got moved, but she's a lifelong friend now.
Absolutely. And she owes me some crocodile meat. So
yeah,
she said she was going down to Louisiana and was going to bring me back some gator meat, but she got moved off the route.
But
maybe one day.
The small act of offering her a plate of food, she took care of us just in our deliveries and made a point to make sure we got them on the porch or wherever we wanted them. And she just hugging her in the Walgreens the other day. Yeah. So you can find drivers, whether it's your FedEx driver. I mean, I know Amazon comes here about every day.
Yeah.
So there are so many people that drive for a living. Yeah. And you could get 2 or 3 doing it for you.
Right. And, you might call them bird dogs. Yeah. Or you might call them just a member of your team that has I'm pretty sure these apps have a way to build your team and add users, and they can just add target properties as they're driving, because you'll tell them, hey, I like this neighborhood. I like this neighborhood. Right. If you're driving through there one day and you see something that looks, like it would be a great investment for me, you're going to have to tell them your buy box so that they know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But then they're out there bird dogging it. They're out there figuring it out.
Absolutely. So the next strategy is save searches on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, whatever your preferred site is. I can't tell you the number of deals that we got because of save searches. And I guess the next one that we want to talk about is real estate agents. Yeah. And I know there are properties that we found and purchased before friends of ours even had a chance to think about it because of the save searches and our awesome agent.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about one in particular. We were sitting in the Golden Corral signing the contract, and then went to our local meetup the next day or next week.
Right. And there were 3 or 4 people that came up to us saying, did you see that deal that came on the market? And we were like, yeah, that's ours.
Yeah, we got it under contract. And then they were like, oh, it was only on the market for 4 hours.
Right.
And it was because we drove by it on the way to dinner individually, because we weren't together that day for some reason. Yeah. So we both drove by it and we're like, yeah, this is a screaming deal, and put an offer in, signed it while we're sitting there at dinner. And then we went and did the full inspection after.
Right.
And yeah, the rest was history. So
that's right. It just comes to show how valuable your team is. And I talk about this in Dream Life, and we also talk about it on the podcast quite often, how valuable your team is. And that is, all the way from your handyman to your agent to your lawyer.
Yeah. You can't grow a business on your own, no matter how much you think you can. And solid half of our properties were our agent sending them to us.
Exactly.
So I highly recommend finding a great agent and taking care of them. Don't use them for one deal and then find a new agent.
Right.
Pick one, stick to it. If you're in the local area and need a great agent local to us in Noonan, send us a message. We'll connect you with someone that's great, and we'll help you grow your business.
Absolutely. And the last thing to talk about on, automating things is to build a website.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be very, very fancy. It could just be a one-pager.
Yeah.
I buy houses.
There's sites like Carrot and Lead Propeller, I think, is the other one.
Yep.
That will do a lot of it for you. And you don't have to do much of anything. It's standard messaging that they use across markets. And I believe they will only do so many in each market, so you don't get oversaturated. But if you want to build it yourself, there's also people that specialize in the SEO, the search engine optimization for that, so that you make sure you're ranking top of list.
Right.
And we have great contacts for that also. So if anyone's interested, reach out and we can get you connected.
Absolutely. All right. And the last step in designing your buy box is the most important, and that is taking action. Now, taking action doesn't have to mean that you have all of your ducks in a row and that your action is going to be perfect. I encourage people to take imperfect action. Taking action is the hardest step of doing anything, really. Yeah. You want to go lose weight. The hardest step you'll ever take is, buying the right food,
or not eating the chips,
or getting on the treadmill, or going outside for a walk. That first step is always the hardest. So the first step that I encourage you to do, and it's a very easy one, once you have decided you're going to be a real estate investor, or maybe you already are a real estate investor, and now you've got your buy box design, start telling people. Tell everyone
Yeah.
That everyone that you know that you buy houses.
Our best flips that we've done were not in our local market,
Right.
but were people that we knew trying to sell houses. And they knew that we did that from family or friends or
Right.
different connections. And so us doing this and talking about it led to us generating a lot of income.
Yeah.
Just from when someone asks you what you do, you don't, talk about your day job or whatever you're doing, but to also talk about how you're a real estate investor.
Absolutely. And by telling people what you do, they're going to come to you first when they hear about something, especially if like you're driving for dollars or you're maybe walking for dollars and you're door knocking and stuff like that. And you find the one lady or man in the neighborhood that knows everything about the neighborhood. Make sure they know exactly what you're looking for and exactly why you're looking for it. And they're going to call you immediately when they hear some type of drama in the neighborhood of so-and-so is moving out and here's why they're moving out. And that property is perfect for you. When can I get my $2,000?
And I want to add, like, Eric is a master at letting people spill their drama. And he just sits there and takes it in. I think you zone out a little bit. I don't know, but you let people go on and on and on. And I'm like, get to the point, lady. What's going on? Like, you let them spill the tea.
People need a space to vent.
Yes.
And by becoming their safe place or their safe space, they start building trust.
Yep.
And by just nodding and hearing them and, empathizing a little bit, you build a rapport.
Right.
That they start to trust you.
Right. So,
and that is not an opportunity to take advantage of anyone. And I'm not saying that. That is an opportunity for you to truly help solve their problem.
Right. Absolutely. So
and that's the art of real estate. We're here to solve people's problems.
So when people call with that deal, don't just get to the numbers and what does the property look like. Really hear out what's the problem that person's facing.
Absolutely. The next step is to assemble your team. In Dream Life, I make people write in their course handbook to write out team and then their last name. And that's what we did. We have Team Vogel and we list out everyone that's on our team. And we should be sure to really take care of the members of our team and really make them feel like they're on a team.
Yeah. Well, some of them are family now. It's
not by blood. It's not like that magic could happen. Yeah, they are family.
They watch our kids for us. And
yeah.
We hang out regularly and
we go to lunch with our attorney and our agent and, some of our lenders. And we spend time with them.
We spend time talking about sister wives and all the drama.
That's out of my realm. I do not know. The next step is to start attending meetups and seminars and courses. Talk a little bit to the impact of attending things like that.
Why are you putting it on me, bro?
Because I've been talking so much and I need to take a sip of water.
Okay, fair enough. So going to local meetups, I know for us, we attended a local meetup consistently. And if you've ever been there, Danny likes to talk about how we sat in the back of the room and didn't ask a whole lot of questions, didn't say a whole lot. And gradually we got more and more comfortable and we learned the space and the people. And that led to us building out a lot of our team. Our lenders go to that meeting, our friends, mentors, a lot of people are there. And now we're mentoring some people that we've met through there. And we would not be where we're at if it wasn't for that meeting.
Right.
Because knowing when you have a crappy situation with a property, knowing who to call is the only thing you need to know.
And sometimes you just want to vent to someone that will understand.
Right.
And, for most of us, especially before we attended any meetup, if we were facing the problems we face today in our real estate investing journey, we cannot call our friends from high school. We can't call our friends from college. We can't call our friends from childhood and say, oh my gosh, I just lost $70K because this major thing went wrong or because the market dipped or, the zip code turned.
Yeah.
Like you can't share those things with them. And if you do share it with them, they'll be like, well, you were stupid to do it to begin with.
Or like, dang, I wish I had a problem with that. Like, must be nice.
Yeah. It's really important that you start networking and build camaraderie with people that are in this space.
Right.
Because you are going to face challenges that you're going to need someone to lean on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just think the people that are in that meetup with you might not have the same buy box as you. One of our lenders doesn't buy houses with decks.
Right.
So if he found we might have the same buy box, but he doesn't want a house that has a deck. So then he could send that to us because he's already vetted it as potentially a deal. You still have to run your numbers, but there are so many houses out there.
Yeah.
And if you're clear on what you want, you can work with other people. And the stuff that doesn't fit your buy box might fit somebody else's. And you send them deals and back and forth. And it's just this great networking group where everyone benefits.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah.
The last thing I have to say about your buy box and taking action is to follow your gut. And, if you're from the South, your mama has probably told you once or twice, well, follow your gut, baby. I know I heard that a lot. Just, what does your gut say? Like, you go to buy a house, what does your gut say?
Well, how does
you
the
buy
house
it or not?
feel?
Yeah.
Like, so much of just how the house feels matters. And we have a house that it just doesn't feel good.
Yep.
It just feels off. And we're getting ready to sell it and use that equity for something else. And to be clear, we're not just selling it because it feels weird. The financials on it makes sense for us to offload it and use that cash elsewhere.
Exactly.
But every deal we did, we looked at the numbers and then we said, okay, what's your gut on it? And that steered us in a great direction. So I think it'll help other people too.
Yeah. And your gut is not something that usually comes from a place of fear. It's your intuition and it's your inner self speaking to you. And if something feels great and exciting and it just gives you energy, you should follow that.
Absolutely.
Now, also take into consideration your risk tolerance. How much money do you have in the bank? Can you float the things? And we'll talk in another episode about running your numbers and being safe and running your numbers. But let your intuition work for you and don't work against it. Yeah. Because once you start working with your intuition and with your inner self, you will fall into alignment in a way where success will just come to you. And I think that was like a secret sauce for us.
Absolutely.
Is we followed our gut, we followed our intuition, and that's how we saw success just keep coming and coming and coming. Mm-hmm. We didn't allow analysis paralysis to get us.
Right.
We said, does it feel good? Does it make sense? We have to move forward.
Yeah. And do the numbers work. I'm just going to add that in. It wasn't just on the feeling, but if everything lined up, we absolutely bought those houses.
Right. Well, that is our episode on your buy box and, how to buy the right properties for success. Join us in a couple of weeks where we're going to dive into running the numbers on your deals to make sure that you can generate the maximum amount of cash and generate, high net worth and start living your dream life with hyper intentionality and clarity and just, living within your purpose.
See ya.
Shit. We are immensely grateful for you joining us today. If you haven't already done so, we invite you to subscribe to our show. We understand that many of you tune in regularly, but perhaps haven't had the chance to hit that subscribe button yet. Don't worry, it's effortless. It takes about 3 seconds to follow or subscribe on your platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're enjoying the show. Your support is invaluable to us and has played a crucial role in the tremendous growth of our podcast. We sincerely appreciate your assistance in any way, shape, or form. Together, we can launch this podcast to even greater heights.